Aloha, Cynthia Monteleone here, and I am so excited to have this discussion today with one of my favorite warriors on Instagram, and that is Christina Elder. Aloha, Christina. So great to have you talking with me today.
Aloha. I'm so excited from Nebraska here and the beautiful scenery that you have in your background. And I wish I could actually be in Hawaii with you. That'd be great. But no, I'm so honored to meet you and finally get to talk to you. And I'm super excited.
Awesome. Well, I would love to have you in Maui anytime you want, you and your whole family.
Yeah.
I'm just intrigued with your story because I find a lot of similarities, and you fit the inspiration that I hope for many, which is to start running either at a later age or continue running, even though you have a family. And what are some really great things, strategies that are making you successful at that? So we're going to get into a lot of that stuff. But can you tell everybody like who you are and your running background, maybe, and how many kids you have, all that stuff?
Yeah. Okay. I'm Christina Elder. I'm 33. I was kind of born and raised in the Midwest. I was born in Kansas City, and then my family moved to Omaha when I was 4. So I've been here for quite a long time. I was a soccer player my entire youth, all the way through high school, and then even got recruited to college to play soccer. Once I got to college, the track coach actually approached me and said, "Hey, you're pretty fast. You should try track." I was like, "Okay." So I did soccer and track in college. Ended my career collegiately as an All-American in the 400 meters. I also ran the 200 and just loved it. Once I graduated, moved back home to Omaha and started my teaching career. So I've been teaching for 10 years, and I wanted to coach and teach. I was kind of burnt out a little bit from track and just competing at a high level for a while. And I met my husband when I moved back to Omaha, and we got married and had our children. And I've been coaching and been staying active, just working out and hobby jogging, like that kind of thing. Did a couple of half marathons, and just it was fun for me to stay in shape, but I didn't really have that competitive edge. Like while I was like having kids and stuff like that. After the birth of my second daughter, she's 4 now. I kind of got like a desire again to just like go fast, like I just kind of got bored with the jogging thing and half marathons. I wanted to start running fast again. I just didn't really believe in myself, I guess, at that point. Like, okay, I'm almost 30 now. I can't sprint anymore. That's hard on your body, bad on your body. I believed all of that was true until I started just kind of slowly getting back into it and realized that I still did have my speed, and got really excited about competing in track and field again. And decided to try something completely different because I kind of retired from the 400. It was I love the 400 so much, but I just felt like I wanted to try something new. And so tried the 800, where I could still use my speed, and entered in a collegiate race and ran like a 2:19. I was like, oh, I am still kind of fast. Like, that's exciting.
Yeah, that's very fast.
Yeah, it was cool because I had never run it in college. And so it was a completely new experience for me. And two, I felt like there's a little bit of that untapped potential because I didn't run track for that long. I only ran it in college, not in high school. And so that went well. And then we found out I was pregnant with my son about a month after that, which was a very exciting blessing for us too. And it was just God's timing with everything. And so kept fit through my pregnancy. Wanted to I'm like, man, that track desire is still there. And after I had him, I had a lot of hip pain, and just like a couple little injuries here and there. Just getting back into running was hard for me postpartum with him. But I kept at it, and I have so much fun doing it, and I'm enjoying it so much more even than I was in college, because I just feel like the pressure's kind of settled. There's not as much pressure. And now I'm just feeling faster and fitter than ever. I mean, I feel better now, I would say, than I did when I was like 22. So I'm feeling really, awesome. Really strong and fast, and I'm just enjoying it on a whole different level.
So how old is your youngest now?
So he just turned 20 months.
Okay. Wow. So
Yeah.
you're back at it pretty quickly.
Yeah, it was a pretty fast comeback, and I didn't know what was going to happen. I just kind of put trust in my coach and myself that I'm like, I just got to ease myself back into it, like not put a ton of pressure on myself. And then everything with 2020, it's just kind of gave me all that time to train and focus and ease back into it and start getting my speed back. And it's a super fun journey, and I'm just loving it. So, and I'm a true believer, and like, it's like age doesn't mean anything,
Yes,
it's like speed is right there and you can develop it.
I love that. And so yeah, you look fantastic. And just recently being a mom, it's really hard. Like we talked about right before we got on, how I had like 11 minutes till go time on the podcast. I was like, I can hang some laundry. I can do a little bit of laundry. So that is our life as older athletes, I would say. Not collegiate athletes. We're in college. Yeah, you do have classes and things like that, but it's nothing compared to raising children and being an athlete. So like we definitely have to fit a lot into our schedule while giving our children all of our energy. So I think probably you found that it is a little bit harder and more slow to get back into it when you're having to raise the young children. You probably didn't have that competitive edge because your focus and energy is all on raising those kids. So but yeah, I love that that you changed your event as well. What was like your 400 time? Just curious. And when you're an All-American, what was that sitting like?
It was a 55.1.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because I had, like I was a 5th-year senior because I didn't run track my freshman year. And so, because I was just playing soccer, and so I ended my best time indoor season. And so I was kind of bummed that I didn't get a chance to try to crack 55 outdoors, but
I think you would have done it for sure.
I know. I'm like, oh man, I wish I could have said that I did that, but I feel like it was there. I had to move back home, and then I'm like, well, I don't want to try to and I was pretty burnt out at that point too, because it had been just kind of a long grind, and I was in grad school.
Double sports too. That's pretty hardcore. My heptathlete client, Annie Kuntz, was a double sport athlete. She also played soccer at Texas A&M and was a heptathlete.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. And she same thing happened with her. She stopped playing soccer and went another year with her track. And it was in that year that she discovered that she actually was pretty good at the heptathlon. And so now we know she's really good at the heptathlon.
Yes,
that's won the Olympic trials. So
story. That was so cool.
Yeah, she's got a totally inspirational story as well. But yeah, so okay, so the 800. So you must be a glutton for punishment like myself, because the 400 is hard enough training, and in a way it is, in my opinion, a little bit harder than the 800 in some ways. But man, I'll tell you that last 200 of the 800 meters for me always feels like glue, no matter what. It feels like I'm stuck in glue. So how many times a week do you train?
Right now, so my training has kind of changed because I was doing a lot of stuff kind of on my own. Like I was just kind of coming up with stuff based off of like what I did as a 400-meter runner in college. And I was still working out at this gym called Orange Theory Fitness. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but that was kind of that's where I met my coach. And then we decided to break away from the gym and just focus more on, because I was just kind of doing too much. Like I was doing track workouts on top of Orange Theory workouts. And it was just, I kind of started to notice, I'm like, okay, I don't think my body can take that much. Like my body can take a lot now, but it's not that much. And so I'll do track workouts generally 2 times a week, sometimes 3, if I don't have a race or anything. And then I'm doing recovery runs in between those that are just like easy runs. And then I do 1 long run like every other week usually. Okay. And that's only like a 9-mile run ish.
Ooh, so 9 miles.
I know. Like seriously, like as a 400 runner, I was like 9 miles. I'm like, I need to run for like a half an hour,
Yeah.
So that's been kind of the change for me. It was the endurance side, I guess, because I was such a sprinter. I mean, in college, I had teammates that like on a DMR that were distance runners. They'd go warm up for like 2 miles. I'm like, what? I jogged 2 laps.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Well, I actually don't even have my sprinters jogging anymore. Like they literally are not allowed to jog 2 laps warm up. They just do build ups. I just did a couple of videos of sprint techniques for beginners, and we talked about that in our videos, like how we don't want to train those slow twitch at all.
No,
So
I totally agree with
yeah,
you.
I wonder if you changed a little bit of that to more like interval, strength endurance, speed endurance type things, if you would get even faster. Like, I don't know, it'd be something to talk about with your coach, because really when you're getting to the times that you're doing right now in the 800, like, one, I fully believe that you can probably run another 55 or 54 400 if you wanted to. And two, that means that translates to, what's your 800 goal say?
I
Like
really would like to
sub
get
210?
I would love to get sub 210. Like
Yeah.
that, I think my big goal is like a 208. And I'm trying to dream those big dreams, and
Yeah.
and that's always what my coach tells me too. He's like, of course you
Yeah.
can, and he's kind
Exactly.
of a minimalist guy too. And so he's trying to get me, because I think I was so focused on the volume aspect of like, seeing what other elite middle distance runners are doing. I'm like, oh, I should be logging like 60 to 70 miles a week. And he's like, no. He's like, you
Yeah.
are a speed-based athlete. And
Right.
so I'm trying to get away from that mindset. I'm working through it. Like, I feel like this summer has kind of been a wake-up call for me, because I dealt with like a tiny little Achilles issue. And I think a lot of it was just too much volume. So
yeah, that's the thing, is that as athletes, we have to pay one, we're different than in our 20s, right? So we have to train a little bit differently, and that's why I love introducing like sprinting for beginners, because I think just concentrating on that high intensity as we age, helps us keep that lean muscle mass. That's really, keeps us basically from aging. We need that because as we age, we have sarcopenia and dynapenia, so loss of muscle, loss of power in our muscle. But the more intensity, I feel like, keeps that going. And obviously you train for the 800, like you have that intensity in your training, so it's working for you. And I think you're totally kicking ass. And I love following your journey. Especially being a mom and all that. So, and then tell us, because we connected because you are also animal protein based. So can you talk a little bit about, how that helps you, and also like some of the things people say, maybe, like, or some of the things you see people do. And like for me, like I see people eating the granola bars before their races, and I'm just like, oh man, if they only knew, like, there's a better way. And then they could feel great too, and then they'll be like, oh, I crashed, I'm so tired, or whatever. I'll be in line. I remember at indoors, I was in the queue to run the 400, and in the queue with me was a lady who had not eaten all day. She said she ate oatmeal for breakfast and nothing for like the past 6 hours, because she was nervous and she didn't want to eat. And then she's like, I feel like I'm going to pass out right now and I can't wait to eat. And I thought, oh wow, that is no way to go into your race, like. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there eating my steak, 30 minutes before I'm running. Like, I'm like, not me, man. I'm pretty fueled. So can you tell us a little bit about your experience with being animal protein based?
Yes. Oh my gosh. If I could be grateful for anything, like it is hands down my diet change. I've always like had a passion for nutrition. Even when I was in college, I wasn't like your typical junk food eating person, but I fully believed in the low fat dogma. And so I was just, I'd maybe eat a little chicken here and there, but I was surviving off of bagels and peanut butter and crackers and granola bars. And I actually had hypoglycemia
Oh, wow.
in college. And so I would my sugar would plummet so bad that I'd pass out after workouts, and my coach would have to, go take me to the trainer. It happened a couple of times actually. And so that was a big wake up call for me. I knew something wasn't right, but I'm like, oh, I'm just going to have to eat more carbs, to make it better. And
oh man.
So I was struggling with that all the way through the pregnancy of my firstborn. And then finally, I want to say it's been almost 5 years, I finally stumbled across like some keto information. And I said, this might be my answer. Like, this might be my answer of getting rid of this hypoglycemia and this chronic bloat problem. And I never looked unhealthy, but I felt terrible. And I had way less muscle than I have now. And so I finally I made the switch and I went full bore, like 100% in. And so keto was kind of where I started. And I was still very hesitant about the whole red meat thing, because everything we're taught, for so long is about how bad it is for you, and the high fat, and stay away from high fat. And so finally I broke through and started eating red meat again, because I was even vegan, I think, for like 6 months or something when I was like 25, 26, and I just felt like crap. And
what made you decide to go vegan at that time? Just curious.
I think it was a stupid documentary. I think it was, I want to say it was Forks Over Knives,
Okay. Yeah. I'm always curious as to what prompts someone. And it usually is, I would have to say that 90% of the time it's a documentary, and the other 10% it's somebody who has seen a documentary who's convincing their friend.
Right.
So very rarely is it something that, I think there's a very small percentage that are really ethical about it. And, they're really just, don't want to kill animals and all that stuff, which of course we know that argument falls apart too. But yeah, I'm just curious. So yeah, a documentary. Okay. So you went vegan for 6 months, and I'm sure you figured out quickly that didn't work for you.
No. And I was so passionate about just doing the right thing, because I've always been so interested in nutrition, that was the whole reason I went that way. I was like, maybe this is best for me as an athlete, and like as somebody that wants to be healthy. And so, I figured out pretty quick that I didn't feel right. Thank God, I figured it out in like 6 months versus years, and so I went to keto first. It felt great. And then I found a lot of like Sean Baker and Dr. Paul Saladino's work, and started reading up on that. And so I went full carnivore. So not even any fruits or anything like that, or vegetables. I probably did that for about 6 months. And then, leading up to Turner's pregnancy, so my youngest, I was a carnivore through that entire pregnancy.
Wow. Awesome.
Yes. And I'm very lucky to have the support. I don't know if you know who Dr. Jamie Seaman is. She's kind of a big, she's local here in Omaha.
Oh, cool.
So she was connected with my midwives. And so she's an OBGYN. And so she really watched over my whole pregnancy, and put me on like a CGM and stuff, so I didn't have to do the glucola test.
That's great. I didn't do that test either.
Yes.
Yeah. So, well, actually I did it, but I did it a different way. I want to back up just for a second though.
Yeah.
Well, we know that when you're trying to get pregnant, or right when you get pregnant, the most important nutrients are B12 and folate. And that is because the folate is what forms the brain of your baby within the first few weeks even. So plant-wise, avocados are full of folate. And I remember definitely craving avocado like the beginning of one of my pregnancies. But I wonder if you felt like really great during your next pregnancy, and still competitive, and still that drive, because you had so much B12 and folate from the red meat. Like that is like one of the best forms of getting your B12 and folate is red meat. So I definitely always recommend increasing red meat before trying to get pregnant, and definitely during the pregnancy. And of course there are prenatals and supplements that you can take to supplement that, but it's just never as good as nature's package, in my opinion. So I think that's really awesome and great for your son's brain, that you increase that red meat during that time.
Yeah. So. And I felt amazing. I mean, he was the easiest pregnancy by far, just because I did really stick with it. I mean, there was a little bit of nausea here and there where you want to go to the crackers, but I stayed very consistent. I call him my steak and egg baby, because that was literally all I ate, and I really stuck with it and made sure I was getting in like some, I'm a big believer in the organ meats as well. And like I take the desiccated organ tablets and stuff like that. Because it's kind of hard to get a hold of a lot of stuff, obviously, but I felt so good, and he is such a healthy little guy, and I'm just so grateful for how well I bounced back to after. Even though I had some hip pain and stuff just with the way he was born, and his birth was really fast. But but the recovery and everything postpartum too was phenomenal. And it's all diet. I mean, it has changed my life. It's changed my skin. It's
You
changed.
look great. Yeah, you're
Oh,
glowing. Your
thank
skin looks
you.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's changed. It's just changed so much my brain health. I
Mhm.
used to have a lot of brain fog problems, where I couldn't remember things. I was really struggling with that, and definitely with like lack of sleep with little kids. It was really getting to
Mhm.
me. And so when I went, and now I'm very much more animal based. And so I incorporated some fruits, some non-toxic fruits and stuff back into my diet, which have been good for training,
Mhm.
as good fuel and stuff. But the red meat and the eggs and it's amazing. I wish I would have found it earlier. I wish I would have had it in college, as an aid
Right.
for
Well,
recovery.
we're sold on a
Mhm.
certain type of nutrition in college, don't you think?
Yep. Yep.
And that is, why do you think that is? Why do you think you were pushed into a certain type of nutrition? Like, was it like your peers, or what do you think? Where do you think that your nutrition information came from in college?
I think a lot of, because social media was kind of starting to become a little bit bigger, at that point. So I think I was getting a lot of my information from other athletes, like elite athletes. And I was looking at their diets. I'm like, oh, I guess I need to be pounding 10 bagels a day and, eating all this stuff. And I was having issues where I was eating a lot in volume, but I didn't feel satisfied. And then I was still having the bonking problems with my
Mhm.
hypoglycemia. And so I just didn't understand it because I felt like all I was doing was eating all the time, just like
Mhm.
constantly shoveling carbs. And it was really binding me down, because my stomach didn't feel right because of all of the volume. And
Mhm.
so that's been the best thing about animal based is I'm so free. I mean, I can eat a really large meal at 10 a.m. Now I feel like I can just listen to my body. My body tells me when I'm hungry and when I need those nutrients.
Mhm.
And so I can, pound 5 eggs and, a whole package of bacon at 10 a.m. And then I can make it through the whole day feeling completely fine until maybe 6 o'clock at night. And there might be
Yeah.
some days where my body's telling me I'm hungrier than others, and I just listen to my body, and it's so freeing. I'm not tied down by eating food all the time.
And no more bloating, I'm guessing too.
Mhm. None.
Yeah.
I've never had, and I'm not trying to be like boastful or anything, but I've never had like visible abs ever. Like, and in college, I mean, I was a pretty, I had muscle. I was a sprinter. I lifted 5 days a week,
Yeah.
6 days a
Obviously
week.
very active in college.
Yeah. And I was strong and I've always been an athlete, but I never had a visible abs. Like I've never had like a six pack or anything. And I've always wanted one, everybody does. And then I tell people all the time, they're like, how do you get a six pack? I'm like, I eat meat.
Yes.
Like I don't do anything different. I
I
don't do
love
it to
that.
my abs.
I think we probably have that in common, that like when
Yeah.
someone asks you pretty much a question about anything, you can just say, I eat red meat,
I eat red
Like
meat.
I
I eat
remember one
steak.
time a TSA agent asked me, oh, your shoulders are so defined. How do I get defined shoulders like that? What should I do? And she was
Yeah.
expecting me to say like, oh, shoulder press this, something like that. And I was like, well, you start by eating red meat. And she was
Mhm.
so confused. She's like, what? And I was like, you have to eat mostly red meat so that you get
Yep.
the amino acids to build your muscle tissue. And then she was just like, oh, okay. Like, but I'm like,
Yeah.
that's the truth. It is the truth. Because I think there's a neuroscientist that I listen to, Andrew Huberman, really awesome. He has a podcast, and he talks about how really we're actually just foraging for amino acids in
Mhm.
protein. And so you'll keep eating the carbs until you get those amino acids and protein that your body's craving. So I think that's,
Right.
probably why you're able to eat like, the bacon and eggs and then feel satisfied, because you're basically checking off those boxes, and then
Mhm.
your body's not wanting. And how about like, I think a lot of people think that bloating is normal and it's okay, and it's,
Yeah.
it's actually not. And that we really, as we age especially, need to pay attention to that, because that means that your food is fermenting maybe not in a great way.
Mhm.
And so, and who wants to be bloated before they're running and exercising anyway?
Oh,
Like that feels horrible.
it's
Um,
miserable. I
yeah.
used to deal with that. Like it felt like there was a bubble in my stomach during runs, and I'm like, oh, it's just normal. It's not normal. And it took me forever to work through that. And now I'm kind of at a point where I barely consume fiber. And to people that like blows their mind. They're like, you don't eat fiber? Like and I feel so much better without it. Like, it's like, trust me, everything's fine
Mhm.
and normal. Like, and
Yeah.
I just feel so much better and I don't feel heavy and weighed down. And like
Mhm.
you said, like I can eat, I can eat 3 hamburger patties and then go run a half an hour later and feel fine.
Yeah.
Like I don't feel
Right.
weighed down by my food. And
I had someone comment to me on social media once that you can't eat steak. He told me you can't eat steak before you run a 400 because protein takes longer to digest. Everyone knows that. Go get a biology 101 book. And I was like laughing my ass off.
And you're like, okay, so what I just did didn't prove you wrong.
I'm all like, oh, okay. So you are the world champion in the 400.
Yeah,
And,
no kidding.
like, I don't care about any comments like that. I block and delete all the time. Like, I mean,
Right.
luckily I don't get trolled too much, but whenever I do, it's about really random stuff. Like, never about what you think it would be about, but I just block and delete. I don't have time for that nonsense or to educate anyone that doesn't want to be educated. I have time to educate those that want to be educated and want to listen and are curious about why it works, not those that tell me you can't eat steak because it doesn't digest. But what you just said is what I always say. I actually don't feel heavy at all. I feel more heavy if I were to eat carbohydrates before I run because it actually goes further down into your intestines and sits there where it's fermenting, right, and causing that bloating really normally. But so by not eating the carbohydrates, one, we're regulating our blood sugar and our energy, and that we're getting acetylcholine and dopamine, basically by, what you said, steak and eggs, for instance, like that's full of the sparking those, things to spark those neurotransmitters. So you're going to have consistent energy, and you're not going to be craving carbs a couple hours later where you crash and then you need to refuel like you did in college. So you have this consistent energy for a minimum amount of food that's actually getting digested pretty quickly in the top part of your stomach. So I think, do you listen to Dr. Ken Berry at all?
Yeah, I love him.
Yeah, he's pretty cool. Yeah, I love his stuff
I
too.
read his book. His book was The Lies My Doctor Told Me. It was probably one of my first books that I read kind of on my keto journey about 4 years ago. So yeah, I love his stuff.
Yeah, he breaks it down and makes it really easy to understand. Yep. And I remember him saying, I mentioned it in my book too, but he had said that he did some tests on people who had colostomy bags where they can't, basically they have to poop in a bag. And that the red meat with proper stomach acid, the red meat never even made it there. So it was digested in the top parts of their stomach and upper intestines, never even made it to the lower intestines or colon. Like, just amazing that we break down those amino acids immediately too. Like the carnosine that comes from red meat, which everyone's trying to supplement carnosine, or beta alanine to make carnosine to buffer lactic acid. So they're always like, how could you eat a steak before the 400? I'm all like, well, it prolongs the lactic acid. Like, I don't get that lactate, or I should say lactate buildup. Lactic acid is not the term. That's the old fashioned term now, of course. So the lactate buildup. But it really buffers that. And that's mostly available within 30 minutes and peaking around that time, around between 30 minutes and an hour. So when you, like, it's so fun to kind of, feel that way and then see other people not feeling that way and then, complaining of these things, yet some of them are still not open-minded to listening to what we have to say. So hopefully we can share this information with a lot of people that are curious about being animal protein-based athletes. So what is like a typical, when you're racing that day, like say if you have a race in an afternoon race or something like that, what do you fuel with the night before and the morning of?
So I eat a steak, like a big, like 1.5 pound ribeye. The night before is kind of my husband is so good at grilling steak. So he's also carnivore, animal based. So that makes it easy because it's kind of our family thing. And my kids will have some clean carbohydrate, but they eat very red meat based as well. And so he grills up a steak for me. Sometimes I'll have some like butternut squash with it or something. It just kind of depends on my mood, but most of the time I'll just eat straight steak with butter on top. Which it blows people's mind. It's like, because I have, I don't have as many followers as you, but the people that see it, they're like, really? Like an 800 runner? Like, where's your pasta? And I'm just like, I'm not even going to go there. First of all, you don't need that
Yeah.
many carbohydrate for anything except for an ultra marathon, but
Right.
then
And
it's not
even
a fuel source.
and even the ultra marathoners, like look at Zach Bitter, he's
I
fat
know
based.
Zach
So
Bitter
actually,
doing
ultra marathoners should
things.
be eating fat based anyway.
Oh my gosh, 100% they should be. Yeah, and so I'll do like a big steak, and then the next day I can usually make it fasted until like 11 or 12. It just kind of depends on when my race is. But I'll usually do 4 or 5 eggs for my first meal with lots of salt. So I'll use Redmond's real salt to get that, because I've really noticed that upping my salt intake too has been a big help. It's really humid and hot here in Nebraska. And so my salt intake goes up quite a bit in the summer as well. And then usually leading up to the race, I'll either do like beef sticks that are just easy to bring with me for traveling, or I'll do like an actual steak jerky. I need to start just grilling a steak and chopping it up like you do. I like that idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so easy to pack it in a little baggie and put it in a cooler, like a little soft cooler bag with an ice pack, and just have it for, I mean, I actually just had this conversation with an elite athlete that just became one of my clients, and he said one of his meat day things was having beef jerky, and I said, why not just the steak? Like because you're kind of getting a little extra, maybe too much sodium.
Right.
Maybe, it depends on what the weather's like, whatever, but it's more processed basically. So why not just, and he was just like, I don't know. I never thought about that. Maybe I'll try that. So yeah, it's just so easy to do that. And just have it chopped up really small so that, if you're like, you can chew, obviously you should chew your meat a lot for digestion, but it just makes it easier to chew it. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, eating it right there and on the field, which is really fun for people. And they're like, what?
Oh, I know. It's
eating
hysterical.
steak right before you run.
People just can't believe it. I think even more so being a female. Like, I think it's just so different from, it's, like I'll go out to a restaurant with friends and they're ordering salads and I'm ordering 4 beef patties. Like, it's just
I love it.
It's so abnormal, I think, for people, like definitely for women. But I just try to I don't try to like push it on anyone, and say you should be eating this way.
But at the same time, as a woman who, you're obviously, you're gorgeous, you're super fit. So do you ever get this where they are ordering the salads and then you're ordering just the meat, and then they're like, oh, but I want to look like you, but like, oh no, but that's weird, but I want to look like you, and then you're like, hello, you got to put 2 and 2 together. It's not because I'm working out, because other people are working out and they don't look like that. They don't have the abs, like you said. Like, they could be working out nonstop and they still don't have the abs. But it's it's that nutrition. So I like to try to point out, like, I'm the same way as you. I won't explain to people unless they ask me first. But if they ask me, I'll say, like, it's because I'm eating the meat and I'm not eating the bread.
Right. Right. 100%. And that's what I try to do too. But I think it's crazy because a lot of times I think people just think that I'm a genetic freak, and that I just look like this because I look like this, where, obviously you look at a lot of us elite athletes and, we do have some genetic gifting, but I'll show, like, I pulled up a picture the other day of me at 24 years old, I'm still like skinny, but you look at like the muscle difference and the muscle definition differences between that Christina and now, and I'm 10 years older and I have way more muscle, and it was all diet because I was running and lifting and doing all the same things that I was doing then. And that's what I'll kind of show. And I'm like, that is diet. Like, that is the same person right there, at a younger age. And so I think some people are actually like, okay, like, it sounds crazy. Because I remember when I first heard about the carnivore diet, I was like, what in the world? Like, it's so different and countercultural to what we're used to and what we grow up with. That it's, even my family was kind of like questioning it too. Like, really, you're not gonna eat your vegetables? And I don't need them. Like, I'm getting everything I need. I mean, do I look healthy?
Yeah,
so
exactly. Well, here, let's go down the checklist. Do I look healthy? Is my blood work checking out? I have no illness. I have healthy kids, and I'm kicking ass in my performances right now. I mean, you're running sub 220 800s, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, is really hard at any age. So,
this is Tata.
Like that. And you obviously are happy and feel good. You know, like life, we all have our ups and downs and challenges in life, but it's very apparent by how you come across and, you know, everything, that you're happy and healthy. And that's what it's about. Like, that's what I try to explain to people is, you know, put away your misconceptions. Don't trust the mainstream media for your information on nutrition, because we all know they lie. And and you know, go with what actually is working for people. Like when you have someone who is, you know, a master's age, who's competing and increasing their performance, such as yourself, like we, you know, that's why I like to say, okay, who's doing great, who's got results, and let's hear what they're doing, you know.
Exactly. And I love that, because I feel like people like you and I love how passionate you are and how you really put yourself out there, and you're putting in a lot of extra time to get these messages out there, which is, I really look up to for that. Is it's people like us that are going to change the narrative, because that's the one positive of social media, is now we can be the information, we can be the media that gets the proper information out there, because we know the media is not going to do it. I mean, we're not, look at like Nina Teicholz and how many times she's tried to change the dietary guidelines and it's not working. And
right,
so it's like, obviously
it's driven by financial gain for large companies, unfortunately. I tell this story all the time, but I have an athlete who went to a very prestigious university and said, I knew something was wrong when the head nutritionist for sports nutrition, who also oversaw all of the people who were getting their degrees in nutrition from this very prestigious university, when they were pushing Pop-Tarts on the athletes, saying that we needed sugar. Okay, so that person was also on the board for Kellogg's. And he said, you know, I knew something was wrong when I saw that correlation. And you know, how tragic for people, and especially our athletes, to tell them that they need sugar or all of that artificial junk is fine for them, when they haven't even tested them for, you know, maybe genetic mutations and, you know, in their alleles, where if they have ApoE4, for instance, then they can't process sugar, and then they'll start building plaque in their brain for Alzheimer's already in their 20s. Like, are these universities testing them for ApoE4? No, of course they're not. So they're really doing a great injustice by just pushing their product for the sake of the bottom line. And it's sad. And I, like, again, I appreciate you as well. Like, just being like, hey, like, I'm standing up for what I believe in. And guess what? I eat a lot of meat and it works.
It's been so life-changing for me that I just want it for everybody, you know. And I see, you know, I follow a lot of elite athletes, and it's just like, man, I know they're trying to do the right thing and they're trying to eat healthy, but you just makes you wonder how much further sports could go and injury prevention could go if we had the proper diet. And, you know, for these elite athletes, but they're just listening to their nutritionists and their dietitians, and they don't have the right information.
And those dietitians and nutritionists are trained in the system. And so there's definitely some things going on. And because I work with elite athletes, I see that all the time, and it drives me bananas. And so they have to make a choice not to listen to them, and then they seek me out, and then I give them, you know, an individualized protocol, of course, but it's definitely predominantly meat-based. And as far as injury goes, you're totally right, because, you know, what heals muscle tissue or soft tissue injury? Carnosine, carnitine, and taurine. And where are you going to get those amino acids? I can tell you it's not plant protein. So, and it's not going to be those, you know, oh my gosh, I saw an elite athlete the other day making avocado toast with tomatoes. And I was like, oh my gosh, well, you know what? She didn't make the Olympic trials this year, and she was supposed to go to the Olympics. Like, and I can't, and I'm trying not to be like judging this person, and I'm not judging. I actually feel compassion, and I feel sorry for them, because I'm like, I wish I was working with this person, because guarantee they would be kicking ass at the Olympic trials this year instead of missing it because of an injury, because they're eating avocado toast for breakfast and thinking that's healthy, because it's whole wheat. Of course, whole wheat must be healthy.
Right. They think they're doing the right thing and the best. And that's what's so heartbreaking about it. It's just like, you see these athletes that I follow, a couple that are going through soft tissue injuries, and then they post their meals. I'm like, ugh, you're not helping yourself at all. Like, they're eating zero red meat, zero
red meat, and a lot of inflammatory grains. So
it's just, like, it makes
and sugar
sad.
And sugar,
makes me
frankly.
really sad.
And it sounds like, you know, it could sound like we're being judgy, and some people could be like, well, you know, everybody's different, each individual is different. And Yeah, to a degree, I would say that with my clients, they do have individual protocols according to what nutrients they're deficient in and things like that.
Mhm.
But they are definitely still animal protein based, all of them, because as we age, we need that protein. We need to maintain that lean muscle mass. I mean, we lose the ability to absorb protein as we age, so we need it. And you know what, those athletes in their 20s, they may be young, but they're still getting autoimmune issues at that early age. Like the I think the compounding of the chemicals in the environment have accelerated chronic disease, basically.
Oh,
And so they're still suffering from these issues, these autoimmune issues, earlier and earlier. And so, yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm just like shaking my head like, oh man, I wish I could help this person.
no, it's so hard, but it's they're going to have to want it. And the hardest thing too is if, I'm putting some information out there, it's always, well, you're not a dietitian. Just because I don't have the degree,
Right.
means that I don't know what I'm talking about, even though, I mean, that these dietitians and nutritionists are being taught incorrectly in institutions that are pushing a certain thing,
Right.
political agenda. So
Calorie is a calorie and
yeah.
everyone needs sugar.
It's so sad. But I mean, at least I've had a couple people that are like, wow, like you're obviously doing something right.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, I probably eat 3,500 calories a day. And I have a low body fat percentage, but yet I'm healthy hormonally. And it's just so freeing. And I feel so healthy and so strong and so good that I want it for everybody. And I'm so happy. Like a lot of the brain stuff, because I dealt with not ever depression or anything serious, but I definitely dealt with the ups and downs a lot. And I just feel like I can tackle those so much better, which is crazy. But I swear that's diet, because I can just work through things better.
Yeah,
like
I explained. Yeah, I tried to explain that as when you're intaking so much red meat, you get the B12 and folate again that we talked about, and that actually is what coats our nerves with the myelin sheath. It makes the myelin sheath that coats the nerves. So I always say too, like I was nervous as an athlete in college, and I would get anxiety before races, but now I'm never nervous anymore. Like just in general, like I'm pretty, like you said, happy and even and good energy. And I don't get nervous before my races. I get like excited, like eustress, like happy stress, like, all right, I'm ready to, bust out of the gates and go and execute my race plan. But I'm never like scared or anxious or nervous. And I really feel like that, like you said, the diet has a lot to do with that, because I'm intaking good fats that are supporting my brain health. And I'm intaking the B12 and folate, which is coating my neural sheaths, like, so that my nerves aren't literally frazzled.
Yeah.
So I can attest to that as well. And you know what? I think that's really funny. Sometimes people are like, "Oh, are you a dietitian?" Like, when people try to explain what I do, like, no, don't call me a dietitian. I'm a metabolic practitioner, and I am certified for that. But it doesn't matter for you, I think, because your example is what's leading, and just keep doing what you're doing and keep inspiring all of us, because you're kicking ass, and I love it. So
thank you.
Yeah,
you're inspiring too. I mean, and that was kind of how I found like a lot of that when that fire was coming back, and I just saw like people like you within the community that were still running fast and kicking ass. So I was like, I want to do that too, and so I just feel like we all kind of feed off of each other, and that's like the cool thing about the community. And then it's been really cool connecting with these collegiate runners too, and getting to know them, and they're like, wow, like, and they call me mom, like they're like, mom's here, and so I'm like, we can keep doing this, like when we're done. I'm like, yes, do it. And so it's just cool, because I feel like it gets passed down. And because I ran against, Angie Henry Knott.
Yes, I'm excited for her. Like I'm the girl that will cheer for my competition. So I'm totally pumped to see that she's moved from the 100, 200 to the 400 this year. If anyone doesn't know, she's my age group, and she is a badass. Oh my gosh, she's so awesome. And so she's going to kick butt in the 400. I'm done with my season, so I won't get to race her this year, but I'm super excited and pumped and cheering for her to just like kick butt in that race.
A funny story about her. So she was pursuing the 800 10 years ago. She was hit like an Olympic trials mark. And so she went to the Olympic trials in the 8. And at that time I was in college. And so she was locally here in Omaha. And so there was a couple of college races that she jumped into. and she would run the 4 just for speed work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember in one race, she was so far ahead of me and I was in second that I was like, oh my gosh, I just ran like a 60 or a 61. And I was on track running consistent 56s at that time. I was a junior and she was so far ahead of me that I crossed the finish line. I was like, and my coach was like, you broke the school record. I'm sorry, I'd run like a 55.7 or something.
Oh
She
my
ran like
gosh.
52.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? I'm going up to her and I'm introducing myself because she was 33 at the time. So my current
Oh my
age.
gosh. Wow.
So crazy, small world. And so I walked right up to her and I go, because she's a little shy. And I was like, I want you to know that you're like, I really look up to you and I want to keep running when I'm a mom. Because she had her daughter was only like 4 or 5 at the time.
Yeah, I love that.
And so I like went up to her and she was like, oh, great. And then we kind of became friends and connected. And now, we travel to meets together now and stuff. And so it's just kind of funny how it all came full circle with me being young and in college. And she inspired me when she was in her 30s. And now I'm in my 30s and still running. And it's just kind of,
and inspiring the high
yeah.
school and college girls.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember when I ran in a high school meet last year in Arizona during COVID, all the high school girls afterwards were just like, oh my gosh, you're so inspiring. Like we also didn't realize like we could like do this again later. Like that's so cool. Like we want to do that too. We hope we're like you, later. So that's a really special feeling when you're in that position to hear that and also to be a role model for these women who think that or young women, I should say, who think that okay, after college or after getting married and having kids, like that's it, I'm done. I can't compete anymore. And how awesome for you to be able to inspire these young women, to show them the way that not only can you compete again, but you can kick ass competing again.
Yep. And that's, I think, my favorite part of it is, in college, I loved it and I loved being competitive, but now there's just something different. It's just different. And I think it's being able to keep the sport alive at our age and then inspiring those younger athletes. And and they're just like, you're so, and I can still be fast and competitive and feel fierce and powerful as a woman. So I feel like I'm empowering myself as a person, but then just seeing it being passed down to those younger generations it fulfills me so much, between being a mom and my kids cheering for me and then just,
right?
and then working with, these collegiate girls and then I coach high school and just seeing, the high school girls, like,
inspire
them too. So it's super cool.
Do you ever run with your high school girls?
I do.
Do they like that or do they not like that?
They actually like it. And I'll always ask them, be like, do you want me to run with you? Because if you don't want me to, they're like, yes, no, run with us, which kind of surprises me because I didn't want to like, seem like I was like, making them feel insecure or anything like that. But they always want me to run with them. And they're like, you push us, you help us. And so I'll hop in some workouts and do some stuff with them too. And then I'll run with our couple of our boy milers that will do like a harder workout with me too. So I love those kids. They're definitely like bonus children to me. I just adore them.
I know. I totally agree. I love coaching as well. I'm going to go off on a little tangent from there. We talked for a second before we got on about cell phones. And because as a teacher, you were talking about how the kids are kind of at a disadvantage because you teach high school. So at a disadvantage these days because they're stuck on their phones so much. And I was saying that I think my daughter is the only teenager on the planet, the only 16-year-old without a cell phone. But in the same time, she does have an Instagram, but it's through mine. So and she has hardly any followers because she keeps it that way on purpose, just her close friends. So I feel like in a way she's not subject to a lot of the negative parts of social media, but she still gets to, keep in contact with who she wants to keep in contact. And I can regulate it if I want to. But she's just really not that interested in social media in general. She doesn't care about TikTok or Snapchat or any of that stuff. And I really feel like I see a difference between her and like some of her peers with like the drama of social media. Can you talk a little bit about your experience with, high schoolers and their phones?
Yeah, so it's definitely something I've noticed. I've been teaching for 10 years, so the whole social media apps have kind of evolved a lot over the last 10 years. But one thing I've really noticed with my kids is that they are just not, I'm trying to think of a good word for this. They're just not present as much. Where I love to just have that human connection with them. And I really try to talk about that. Being a health teacher, and I'm the only health teacher in the district. So I get
that is so awesome. I didn't know you were teaching health, so you can totally spread the red meat word.
Yes.
If
And
they
so
let you.
I get this freedom from my boss even, he's like, he goes, use your professionalism and you teach your curriculum. And so I'm not bound by any particular curriculum. And so I kind of teach, and so I can kind of go along those routes with like social media and emotional health, and then obviously nutrition, proper nutrition. And one thing I talk to them about is being present. And I'm like, I want to look into your eyes and have a conversation with you. And I feel like they don't even realize how disconnected they are from the world around them because they're so connected to those phones. And one thing I've really noticed too is that their moods are so unstable because they're so reflective off of the instant gratification they get from their cell phone.
The dopamine.
From social media. Yes. Right. And so it's either, they're looking for approval a lot, or they're, there's just all this constant information being thrown at them that they don't really know how to think for themselves on things either. So it's hard for them to form, an opinion. And so I really try to push for that in my class. It's like, okay, what is your opinion on this? And then give me some, tell me why. And don't just tell me because it's the first article you found on Google, because, okay, who's funding that article? Who's, we go into that whole spiel. But I'm like, I want you to be able to critically think and be present and not just be connected. And I think because they're so used to that instant gratification, and it's kind of sad because they're just bombarded with negative news, positive news, negative news, positive news. And most of it is negative, to be honest. And so they're just constantly bombarded with it. And I tell them, I'm like, challenge yourself and just take a break. But it's so hard for them to do that. Because I think it's such a part of their life that they don't know how to disconnect from that part,
Right.
It's just part of them.
And they're also like addicted to it because of the dopamine. So it's like kind of the same thing as, intaking sugar. Like they're going to become addicted because of the neurotransmitter response that they get from it. And I was talking to a high school principal who had gone to a conference on dopamine depletion in high school students. And so because of the phones. And so it was a problem with actually the whole learning curve. They were learning less because they had less dopamine available because they were on their phones too much. So so I feel like if I could get a message out to everyone, like, it's okay not to give your kid a cell phone. And my mentor, Charles, would advise not to even let them touch a computer or an iPad or anything until after age 12, which you can imagine with virtual learning and all that is almost impossible these days. But if you can limit it, I just see so many parents, and again, it's not a judgment thing, it's just information to share. Like I see so many parents that are just giving their kids the iPad or the cell phone, like even waiting in a restaurant, they don't want them to make noise or whatever, so they could have a conversation. So they just automatically slide that in front of them, but it actually disrupts their thyroid and it causes development issues, not only just their learning, but their development. So that was one of the main reasons why I chose not to give my daughter a cell phone. She does have an iPad now that she sometimes uses for different things, but yeah, she's not stuck, with her neck. That's the other thing. The posture is really bad, right? So she's not stuck with her neck like this all day long because she just doesn't have it. So I would like to give permission to you and to all mothers out there that you don't have to give your kids a cell phone or an iPad.
Yes.
Like, it's okay. They're going to survive. They will be okay. If she needs to call me from school, she goes to the office and she uses the phone and she calls me.
There's ways to figure it out. Yes. And like that, and right now I've been, and there's moments where, we all slip and make mistakes and stuff. But yeah, in the car, even, I don't give my kids technology. We have a 5-hour trip to go see my husband's family. And I say, you know what? Yeah, it's going to be more challenging for us as parents because they're going to get fussy and start hitting each other, and whatever. But they don't need a device. Look out the window, be creative, problem solve. And so, and they do, it's amazing if you don't give them that option automatically, how well they can do and learn to control themselves without technology. Because we, you know, in the car or at the store, I have an iPad for work, and my daughter hasn't been on it all summer. So it's just like, okay, like, you know, go outside and play, go ride your bike.
Yeah. Do you find that they're more creative? I feel like they're more creative when they're disconnected from that electronics.
Yep. And I feel like there's so many more interactions I can have, even if they're hard interactions. Sorry, my daughter needs me. Speaking of.
No, that's exactly.
Where's your swimsuit?
I don't know. It's not on the deck.
It's not on the deck. Is it up in your room? Can you go check?
No.
Go check.
Okay.
She's upset because she wants to go play in the water table. She can't find her swimsuit. But yeah, I just feel like too, like in the store, for example, if they're with me, it's like I have a chance to talk to them about things, or like, hey, what should we pick out? Or, you know, can you help mommy pick out, you know, a good steak, or, you know, or something like that. And it's amazing how much more they interact and how much more creative they are when they don't have the iPads.
Yeah, that's a great message too for you to be able to share with your high schoolers, that they don't really need, you know, a phone and to take a break. And I know for me, pre-competition, I get off of social media for a whole week. So I don't even look at anything for a whole week.
For you. I need to try that.
And to conserve dopamine so that I have it available for that last kick in my 400 meters.
I love that. I need to try that.
Yeah,
we all fall into it. Like there'll be times where I notice in the evening where, you know, Tyler and I are just I'm like, let's put our phones down. Like, what are we doing? It's like you're just scrolling aimlessly. And like, I think there are really good things for social media. Like obviously like connection with somebody. I've never been able to meet you, you know, except for at a meet, but it's just like you can connect with like-minded people, and that is an amazing thing. But it's easy for even us adults who didn't grow up with them in our faces to get wrapped into them too. And so I try to lead by example, and give my high school kids, you know, examples of things, and like be really real with them when it comes to the phones and like how important human connection is. And I'm like, hey, I'll take a break for a week if you guys take a break for a week. You know, not all of them, you know, do it, but I have a couple kids that I'm close to that actually have, that will take, you know, if they're going through something really hard on, you know, from something that was said on Instagram or whatever, and
so
you know, disconnect yourself for a little bit and see what that does for your mental health. And it's been,
and also the comparing, you know, like they're comparing themselves to, you know, to people that are, you know, are not them. And I always like to say, you know, you want to be the best superhero warrior version of yourself. So like, don't try to be like me. Don't try to be like you. Like, you can learn from our habits and our nutrition and things like that to become your own superhero warrior self, but you're always going to be you. So like, you know, for me, I never ran a 52-second 400 like Angie, you know what I mean? So for me, running a 57 400 when my best was only ever 56, like I feel like, I'm getting you know, like almost maximum back to, or actually I ran my indoor race faster than I ran in college. So like, you know, that's for me. Oh my gosh, it was great. It was so great. I just felt so amazing. Again, I feel the same as you. I feel so good that I want to shout it off, you know, off the rooftops to everyone. And I want everyone to feel this good, which is why I created my warrior community, where people can come in, and it's like my own private Facebook group. It's called Circle. And they do posts about what sprint workouts they do. If someone has like, you know, a little like, oh, their groin felt a little tight or something, then they share it, and then they kind of support each other. Like, so it's for the beginner sprinter, usually master's age, but it's really for everyone, because I give so much information on there. I do a supplement review every month. I do a recipe every month. So it's really fun to like have this supportive community, but that's why I created it, because I want to share that with people, you know, that you too can feel amazing. There's a way to do it. So I think
you're doing so much amazing work, like, and that takes a lot of time and a lot of energy. And I was like super inspired by you for that. I'm like, gosh, I need to put more information out there. I'm like, there will be a season of life where I feel
you can just
support you and
continue being yourself. No, just continue being you and leading by example, and the rest will follow, because like I said, you're doing great. So okay, well, I'm going to wrap this up. Where can everybody find you? And also, what do you have races coming up, or are you done for the season?
Yes. So I was going to run in a road race in a mile this weekend, but I opted out of it, which I think is just best because I'm kind of getting over this insertional Achilles tendonitis that I got from my spikes. I landed funky on my heel, but it took about 2 weeks to kind of get rid of it. So I'm just going to be cautious and forego that race. And so I'll run in the Cornhusker State Games. I'll run the 1500 next Saturday. So that'll be my rust buster.
Okay.
Because I haven't raced in a track event since late May.
Okay.
I ran a road race 3K in June. And then I'll be at the USA Championships, and I'll run the 800 on the 24th, and then I'll run the 1500 on the 25th. So I am so excited. I'm so excited.
Awesome. Yeah, I passed on that one this year for a variety of reasons, but yeah, I decided to end my season and concentrate on next year. But I'm so excited to see what you do. I'm excited to see what Angie does. I'm cheering for her. I'm cheering for all my fellow women because the more power we can give each other, the better. So I'm really into supporting your fellow woman. So
it's
yeah,
an amazing community. It truly is. I can't wait to hopefully put on that USA jersey alongside you, in a year or two.
I can't wait.
So
yeah.
I'm excited.
Next year, I'm sure we'll see each other next. Well, you're going to come to Maui to do some training.
I know. I didn't
sure.
come to Maui. I'm telling my husband.
Fall, we'll make that. We're going to make that happen this fall, and then fall, winter, and then next year I'll for sure see you. I'm planning on going to the indoor championships in New York if they still have that.
Yeah, I want to be there too. So hopefully we can meet up there too.
Cool. And then maybe outdoors if they don't require a vaccine to go to Finland.
I hope not, because I won't do it. So
me neither. I won't be there.
I don't
know.
Thank
you.
Hopefully
that's a whole nother conversation another day, and that one would probably get us censored.
Another hour.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, athlete, you don't want myocarditis? No, I don't.
We could talk about that all day for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to let you go to tend to your little ones. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today and just really, be passionate about what you're doing. Like, you're so, it's just very inspirational to all of us. And I hope somebody, got some inspiration from this, listening to this, and feels more confident to stand up to others who say you can't eat red meat and be a competitive athlete because you're eating red meat and you're kicking butt. I'm eating red meat and I'm kicking butt. So let's continue to do that and spread the word that red meat can be healthy for you.
Absolutely. It truly heals. And that's what I tell everybody. I'm like, it heals. It healed me. And then just, obviously the other benefits is just, I'm able to kick ass and track, and I just love every minute of it. So there's so many amazing benefits. So hopefully more people start kind of figuring that out and reaping the benefits of it too. So we can all just be healthy and happy.
Yes, I agree. All right. Well, mahalo, Christina, and aloha.
Yeah, so nice to meet you finally.
Yeah, aloha.